when you talk about upskilling, particularly when you talk about upskilling, these would primarily be disadvantaged youth who would typically not have higher education or even some basic education. So don't you worry about underemployment? Don't you worry that the only jobs that are open to these youth, the only jobs you can place them into are lower paying? And yeah, what are your thoughts about that?
Thanks. So that's exactly, I think, one of the things why the work that we do is so important, because there is not enough jobs in our country, formal economy, and that is why we are hoping to nudge young people to informal economies. So looking at for example, township economies, looking at ways of encouraging young people to take on entrepreneurship. And we know that comes with its challenges on its own, but the reality is, how are we able to find ways for us to be able to be creative and innovative, to start thinking about not only job creation, and I think this is specifically where we look at digital space, for example. These are new net jobs. Like, these are jobs that, as we speak, that does not exist, and that is because we have a supply challenge in our country. Most of the digital skills are being outsourced. So that's one space that we're looking really with kind of bated breath in terms of the potential that it offers. The other space for us is also in a field called installation, repair and maintenance, and this is what I think back in the day used to be our apprenticeship model. So when you're looking at the connection between TVETs and employers, for example, so what role could we play there in, again, unlocking brand new jobs, where in the past there's bottlenecks and quite a long academic progression before a young person that can qualify as a welder or an electrician can actually get from a place from learning to earning. And then the last bit for us is around the global business services space, which is previously known as the BPO, or business process outsourcing. And this is call center opportunities for young people, but these are businesses where they use, again, the potential that South Africa has to offer, to be able to set up their businesses in South Africa. And again, what we are saying is, we've seen through certain data that for many of these roles, some of it doesn't even require a matric, even grade 11 or even grade 10, but you need to have good proficiency, for example, in English and communication ability. So yes, for sure, there's not enough jobs in our economy, but I do think if we are able to start steering our efforts into certain directions, especially in the three that I mentioned, we are able to get young people who are locked out of the formal economy onto a pathway to actually, I suppose, be in line for what we've come to know as decent jobs. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
And Miguel, same question, but knowing full well that you train your tutors for something very specific, do you think that the training model you use with them can be perhaps used to impart more valuable skills?
So when we go through our recruiting and training process, we don't filter by educational level at all. So we cast a very wide net, and then as the candidate goes through our training process, they're also being filtered. So based on their responses to questions, based on how they interacted with the material, they're being filtered. So it's a very wide net at the top, and then as they're going through it, you're getting a high potential candidate at the end. Now what we've seen is, I mentioned earlier, a lot of our tutors are actually students, but there is 20% which comes from all walks of life. So from people who are unemployed, sitting at home in Khayelitsha, to engineers at Eskom. It varies quite a bit. And what we've seen is that although what they're doing with us is almost a side project, they have become better facilitators, coaches and leaders as a result of tutoring with us. If I can give a very basic example, when we try to recruit our own team, so when we want people in customer support and that type of thing, our best hires have been from our tutor network. So we've actually been really unlucky losing employees from just hiring in general. But when we hire from our tutor network, we can almost guarantee they'll be a really good hire. So we're accumulating a series of data points based on how they interact in the platform. So if a tutor is performing well, if they're teaching really well, if they're making all their lessons on time, that type of thing, that's almost going to predict how well they'll do later in the workplace. So that's been really interesting from our perspective.